So I convinced him to let me make it, and I made it, and I'm happy to say now he's impossible and won't talk to me. No. You know, when I made my first movie, Schllock, I was on the Johnny Carson show promoting Schllock. The thing was, I was a 21-year-old director. I was actually 23 by then. Took that long to get a fucking distributor, but had to lie. But so Rickles was on the show 2 days later, and he said, "You know that kid who was on?" And Carson goes, "Yeah." He says, "I know him from Kelly's Hero." He says, "Did you read about there was an airplane flying from New York to Chicago, and they showed Schllock on the plane, and when it landed, it was empty." That was Rickles. Ask me something. Yes. Great. John Belushi was a great person and a skilled performer. On Animal House, he was fabulous. He was clean, and he was exhausted because he was doing Saturday Night Live. So he would. This is how it worked. On Tuesday night, he'd be driven from Eugene, Oregon to Portland to catch the plane Wednesday morning to fly to New York. He'd get to New York Wednesday late afternoon, go to bed, and then he'd work on Saturday Night Live Thursday, Friday, and shoot Saturday. Then Sunday, he'd fly to Portland and be driven to Eugene again. So we had him 1 whole week, and then we had him 2 days a week for 3 weeks, and he was great. And on the Blues Brothers, his cocaine use got fairly terrible in the middle of it, and that was very difficult because anyone have any friends who were alcoholics or drug addicts or anything? It's a very difficult thing. Yes. It's very hard because you can't help them, and it was hard. He was a great guy, and it's, the moral of this is don't use drugs.
Michael Jackson, can you talk anything about him?
Did you raise your hand? You already asked the question. Sheesh. Now, yes. Oh, fuck you, you total. Do you know the difference between a brown nose and a shithead? Depth perception. When I did Thriller, Michael Jackson was great. Very hardworking, very professional. He was great. And about 8 years later, I did Black and White, and he was completely insane. Completely insane. Still a good guy, but totally crazy. I liked Michael very much, and he did not have to die. But it's very much his own fault.
How'd you guys ever, eventually, how'd you guys hook up to do the video?
Just like in the making of Thriller, I was in London on holiday, and I got a call from Michael Jackson. He'd seen an American Werewolf in London, and he's obviously a guy who's fascinated by metamorphosis. And he wanted to turn into a monster. That's what Michael said, I want to turn into a monster. So I didn't want to make a rock video because they're commercials to sell records, and I wasn't interested. But Michael was such a star. Do you know that Michael, what's interesting about Michael, he's really the first truly international celebrity, meaning he was as big a star in Bangkok as he was in Sao Paulo, as he was in Anchorage or London or Mexico City or Chicago. The guy was a huge international star. Nairobi, Mumbai rather. Doesn't matter, the guy was a just unbelievable star. And I thought, gee, maybe I can exploit this and bring back the theatrical short. Because I love those shorts, like Three Stooges or cartoons, I hate it when we go see those shitty commercials now, So, that's what I did. I said, Mike, let's make a short. It's called a two-reeler. That's why it's 14 minutes. It's like the same length as the Three Stooges. I said, that's what I want to do. And so, listen, I've told all this shit so many times. Just basically, it's an interesting story because the album, Thriller, Quincy Jones and Michael's album, was already the #1 album in the history of the world. It already sold more albums than anybody. Had been out over a year when I made Thriller. Remember he did Billie Jean and Beat It, and so when it came time to do Thriller, I told him what I wanted to do. So he said, great, whatever you want. I said, okay, I'll be right back. So I brought Rick Baker over. And we showed him a book of monsters, and he was like, ew, 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 you know. And he was living with his parents in Encino. Anyway, so I went home and I wrote this thing, Thriller, and I came back and I said, here, how about this? He said, great. And I thought, the truth is, I'd made the Blues Brothers. And in the Blues Brothers, Johnny and Danny are not real dancers. They're wonderful dancers, but not trained dancers. So I used amateur dancers in that movie, except for the James Brown number. Those are real dancers. But most of the movie, I just used amateurs, and the routines were very funky. So I really wanted to use real dancers in Thriller. And so Michael loved it, so we did a budget. It was going to cost about, I think it was $500,000. The whole thing cost like $530,000. No matter what you read, that's what it cost. But that was huge, because rock videos at the time cost $35,000, $40,000. We're always done non-union. And I can't shoot non-union, I'm going to shoot union. It's going to have rehearsals and real makeup people, and it was a very big production. And so I'll never forget, Michael calls up the head of CBS Records, this guy Walter Yetnick, and he says, Walter, we want to blah, 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 John, here's John. Hello? Listen, you motherfucker, you think I'm going to be the guy? You think I'm going to spend a fucking dime on that? You're out of here fucking my screaming. And I'm like, Jesus, when he's finished, I go, here, Michael. Michael goes, hello? Okay, thank you. He hangs up and he says, so what happened? So I said, Mike, he won't give us any money. And see, it had been number 1 for like 10 months, and now is like number 5. And they didn't want to spend any more money. So Michael said, well, I'll pay for it. I said, absolutely not. No, we don't do that. We'll get the money. So George Folsey, who's my partner, figured out that if we shot the 15 minutes and then shot the Thriller, and then we did 45 minutes, which we called the making of filler, because it was like, how do we fill 45 minutes? Jesus Christ, what are we going to do? Just film us filming it. We have an hour, and then we can sell that. So we sold it to Showtime, paid us $350,000 for the rights to show it for 1 week. Then we get a call from MTV, Bob Pittman, screaming and yelling. We went to them first, and they said, we don't pay. We don't pay. So fuck you, we went to, so he, yeah. And so we said, well, what do you want? It's too late. They said, well, we want the rights. Showtime was just starting, and cable TV was very small. So you were talking about less than 800,000 subscriptions, so it's very small. So MTV, which was free cable, was in like 120 million homes, and they said, well, we'll pay you for the second. We want an exclusive window. So I said, ooh, it's going to cost. And it did. And it's funny, because Bob Pittman now claims he financed Thriller. It's like, fuck him and MTV. They came late. Did you know MTV had corporate policy would not play black acts? There were no African-American acts on MTV until Michael. And with Billie Jean and Beat It. And it's funny, because it was like I know that Bob Pittman went, well, he's not really black. Because he was the first. It's amazing, but it's not that long ago, guys. So anyway, to make a very long story short, so we made Thriller, and we made a deal with Disney to distribute it. It opened in LA in a theater with Fantasia, and they sold out every show for like 12 days, every show for 12 days, and it was really sad, because Fantasia's great. And they would come and see Thriller and then leave. But it was so obvious, the power of it, that then we had to release it to Showtime, and then it went on MTV. And then a guy named Austin First called me. And then those fuckers, you know what they did, Walter Yetnick did, when they saw how successful it was, after I fulfilled all my contractual obligations, right? He did this. It's totally illegal. He made copies of Thriller. Not the making of Thriller, because I owned that. Thriller, I only had half. Made copies of it and sent it to every television station in the world. Said, here, you want this? It's free. And do you remember how there was all Thriller all the time for a while there? Every goddamn station was showing Thriller. Well, it was bad for me, but it was good for Mike and for CBS, because the album went back to #1. and tripled in sales. Remember, it was already the best-selling album of all time. Tripled in sales. So Thriller proved, it made MTV, it made the making of business, which I'm now sick of. Although at 7:30, they're screening where? Here? Where?
Lime room.
Lime room.
Lime.
The what room?
L-I-M-E.
Lyme room, where you get Lyme disease. They're screening Beware the Moon, which is Paul Davis's excellent documentary on the making of American Werewolf. But